Ladies and gentlemen, Six Fig Stock Trader here from YouTube. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the internet computer ecosystem, Supernova, and price action. So let's get into this. So welcome back, folks, and we are just going to be covering the co-grand champions of Supernova in this video, but I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone that participated in the Supernova hackathon. This produced over 400 projects from over 3,700 developers. Think about that for a second. This is insane stuff. So there are two projects that are sharing the crown, Cubetopia and Spinner Cash. Now, we will be going into these projects a little bit more in depth in future videos. In addition, we'll also be covering a lot of the other projects that placed as finalists and won awards, things like that as well. So there's going to be a huge influx of ecosystem videos from this channel. Now, Cubetopia is basically kind of like a Minecraft-inspired metaverse. And I'm going to try to get these guys on the channel to really talk about their project a little bit more in depth, because during the demos yesterday, there was time restraints, things like that, just to keep the Supernova demo day and award ceremony, things like that, on track. So with that said, this is going to be very interesting to see how this develops out. Now, the other grand champion was Spinner Cash. Spinner is kind of like Tornado Cash, and this is basically going to allow for private transactions on internet computer and Bitcoin. So this is huge. Now that internet computer has integrated with Bitcoin, or it will very soon, you can see where Bitcoin enthusiasts that want to remain private are all of a sudden going to flood into the internet computer ecosystem to use Spinner Cash. So this is going to be a very interesting and controversial DApp to have, but it is necessary because there's one thing that everybody wants in crypto for the most part, and that is privacy. So that's pretty cool. So big shout out to all the winners. There's so many of them that there's no way I could list every single one of you in a fashionable or reasonable amount of time right now. Let's just go ahead and look at ICP and the price charts, things like that. You can see that we are still in this very nice falling wedge, and you might be kind of wondering what all these channels shooting off to the side are. Well, we're looking at a shift pitchfork, and what I'm trying to determine is that when ICP decides to explode from this falling wedge, where are there going to be some resistance points, things like that. And we can kind of see that this might be the forward projection that ICP takes once it starts taking off, or once we do find that bottom. So really, for the most part, I would say that it's fair to say right now that internet computer has exited this falling wedge on a traditional chart, and we could be seeing a setup happen for a bounce up into this channel. Of course, nobody knows, but there are also some things that I just want to go ahead and forewarn people about. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And there's some big things that are going to happen July 2nd or July 5th. So with that said, when we look at this, price is pretty close to this 50 moving average, the Ichimoku cloud. We can see how this conversion line and the baseline have almost started trading parallel with each other. So this is something that we want to see. And whenever we see this conversion line underneath the baseline and it starts to arc upwards, we will get a very violent reaction in price. Consequently, if this arcs downwards, the same thing will happen. Now, here's an example of when a conversion line starts arcing upwards. You can see that it starts right in here, and boom, it's off to the races, literally. Here's another example of it. So price reacts very nicely in our favor when it arcs upwards in this particular setup. So where are we going to go from here if we bounce? Well, that's a good question. I do think that we will come up to retest the $6.08 level, $6.47 level. Really, I'm going to be paying attention to the 161.8 around $7.61, 127 around $7. So if this thing does go to the downside, folks, which it very well could, I mean, we don't know if we're out of this crypto winter or not. So it's important to discuss both sides of the story here. But when we look at this, I do think that, bear with me one second, you can see how nicely price action is playing within this Fibonacci retracement. So this came down to the 786. Now we are forming some sort of a symmetrical triangle squeeze, and it's off to the races in either direction. We just don't know until we get this movement that needs to happen. Look for the $4.62 level, the $5.02 level, $4.10 level if things get bad. Now, if like the wheels completely fall off, $3.83, $3.44, somewhere in that neighborhood. Those are important numbers to keep in mind. So if you see this thing kind of trading down past, $4.50, somewhere in there, there might be a chance that it wicks down to that $4.10-ish level. Not financial advice, anything like that, but we could also be seeing some sort of pattern that is filling out here. We could be seeing that there could be some sort of ascending triangle or something like that forming, which would be awesome to see, because right now the cryptoverse really needs something like that. But for now, we're just going to have to play the waiting game. Let's look at Bitcoin quick, because we have a very special date, July 3rd. And how did I come up with this July 3rd date, you might ask? Well, I'm going to go over this just like I do in all the other videos. When I throw up a Fibonacci time sequence from the November 2013 all-time highs down to the reversal point of the 2015 bear market, you can see after we hit these highs, it was a several year-long bear market that happened. Fibonacci time sequence, or Fibonacci, by measuring this low point in this this dip here from this high point, Fibonacci time sequence will help us possibly determine other points that might be significant. Right here out of the gates, there's not a whole lot that's significant about this, other than the fact that it could have been indicating, and it could have been a couple of weeks off, warning us about increased volatility. But the one-time sequence I'm interested in is this January 28th date. And it's kind of just right in the middle of this 2018-2019 bear market that was. It just is. So I'm hoping that this July 2nd date could possibly July 3rd, July 5th, somewhere in there. I'm hoping that this isn't going to be an accelerated depreciation of crypto or a drop-off, because really what we're seeing on these charts is this symmetrical triangle squeeze. And in a lot of cases, what we'll see is these patterns like the symmetrical triangle, basically they are just holding patterns. A lot of times we'll see continuation of price tags and previous trends. So we could be heading down lower. If that happens, your guess is as good as mine where this thing is going to go. But hopefully we get a nice solid reversal, because when we look at Bitcoin on the weekly chart, really, folks, I would love to see Bitcoin come back up to retest this 200-day moving average around the $22,600-ish level. So it just is what it is. And every time on the weekly chart, we've gone underneath this 730-day moving average, which is this thick green line. It's been a pretty decent time to buy crypto, especially when we lingered around this 200-day moving average. So is it going to happen? We don't know, but hopefully it does. You can see in historical examples, when this happens, we've gotten some pretty nice melt ups as a result. So who knows? We could be seeing some sort of a melt up like we saw from March 2020 to April 2021. We just don't know until we know. But in my opinion, I'm hoping that the bear market doesn't get much worse than this. I never thought that we would have seen anything like we've seen so far out of the crypto markets. The shakeouts of exchanges, other exchanges buying up mass quantities of Bitcoin like nobody's business. It's just been one of the most bizarre bear markets ever. So with that said, folks, if you're interested in finding out more about Internet Computer's ecosystem, stay tuned for the end screens where I will have more videos on it. We'll see you guys all on the next video. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend wherever you're at in the world.